Welcome to Real Judaism with Rabbi Ari Klapper. Unfiltered wisdom for Jewish life.
Okay, Bez Hashem, we're here in Perek Hey. We started Perek Hey, Chelek Gimel, last week. We have a siddur. We do have a siddur, so we can follow along in the siddur. It's a parish of Atah Echad. That's what the Perek is about. Now, just to make we started it already. We already talked about Atah Echad last time, but just to put it into perspective, we said last time all three tefillahs on Shabbos, besides Musaf always is a different nusach than the rest of the other tefillahs of the day, but all three tefillahs on Shabbos are different one from the other, from the next. So if we just take a look, what's the theme, I guess you could say, of each tefillah, and then we can appreciate better what Atah Echad is. So the first bracha is Atah Echad Yom HaShvi L'Shmecha Tachlis Meshrei Shamayim Ba'aretz. You made holy the seventh day. You made it holy, and you blessed it from all the days. And then we bring Vayechulu, and we discuss already Vayechulu. We discussed it, I believe, in Chelek Beis, when we're talking about Chidush HaOlam and how the psukim here represent how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. So if you look at the first Shmona Esrei, Leil Shabbos, the first Shmona Esrei is that Hashem made Shabbos special. Hashem blessed Shabbos. Hashem made Shabbos separate and holy. And we bring psukim to prove that. And then the paragraph at the end is a tefillah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu should take our Shabbos. And that tefillah is in the same Elokeinu v'Kevatenu v'Tzeivenu Chasenu, is the same bracha in each one of the three Shmona Esreis. It's the introduction, or the first two paragraphs, which are different. And those two paragraphs in the first Shmona Esrei represent Hashem, you made Shabbos special. As of now, it has nothing to do with Klal Yisrael. Only that Hashem made Shabbos special. You can go to Shachris. So Shachris is a little bit different. Shachris, it says, first thing, Yismach Moshe b'matnas chelko. Moshe is happy with his chelek. What was his chelek? His chelek was to be an Eved. And you made him, the Eved of a Melech is also a Melech. We discussed this in the past. And finally we get into, and you gave us the Torah. And on the Torah, and you gave us the Luchos. And what's written on the Luchos? Shmir Shabbos. Which basically means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Shabbos to Klal Yisrael. So the second bracha, which we also mentioned, I believe, in Chelek Sheni, Chelek Beis, is that you gave Shabbos to Klal Yisrael, and that's the psukim that it brings. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es Shabbos. Laso is Shabbos. Klal Yisrael has to guard the Shabbos and make the Shabbos. So it has to do with Klal Yisrael. And the second paragraph also represents that. But lo nasazu Hashem Elokeinu l'Goy Echad. Hashem did not give it to other nations of the world. We discussed back then what's the difference between Ovdei Psilim and Arelim and what. So the second Shmona Esrei is about how Shabbos was given to us. Shabbos was given to Klal Yisrael. That's the second Shmona Esrei. Fine. What? Why was that chosen for Shabbos? He doesn't explain it here in the Sefer, but what we see is, I think if you put together a few places in the Sefer, the first step is establish that Shabbos is separate. That's the first step. Shabbos is unique. Shabbos is different, and it was different already from creation. Because already from creation, that's what we bring by Shamayim Ba'aretz. That's Perek Beis of Parshas Bereshis, right? We say that this is the last paragraph we read on Simchas Torah. We read from the Torah, right? That the Shabbos was special from Bereshis, even before there was Klal Yisrael. The next stage is, now Shabbos is special, it's given to Klal Yisrael. Now we have it. Now, only us. It's a special gift, only for us. Really, we said it could be, theoretically, it could be shaykh to all mankind, because it's about the Chidush HaOlam, but it's something special that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a connection with Klal Yisrael specifically, Beini, right? Beini uve'emi Yisrael oisi le'olam, which is, we'll talk about that more when we get to the Perek on Tefillin, what exactly it means, what's the bris and the ois between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that's the second stage is Hashem made it, and then Hashem gave it over to Klal Yisrael. It's the second, chronologically certainly is the second stage, but you could also look at it as there are every time there's there's an upgrade. The third Mincha on Shabbos is this parak of Atah Echad. It's a very interesting paragraph. It's a very, very interesting paragraph. What's going on over here? Atah Echad, Shimcha Echad. What is this? So this is what in this parak Hey, or Pinkus is coming to give a parish to each line over here, and how the things written in this paragraph represent the uniqueness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the uniqueness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu dafka on Shabbos, and the uniqueness of Klal Yisrael on Shabbos. Now that Hashem made Shabbos, and then Hashem gave Shabbos to Klal Yisrael, now we're going to see Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, it's matim Shabbos for them. Shabbos is a way that brings out both the milas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? It brings it out. That's the point. Not that, of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has all the milas, but it's on Shabbos we see these points being brought out, and also the milas of Klal Yisrael. And there's numerous things in here about Klal Yisrael, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and we're going to get to it in another few minutes. Goy Echad Ba'aretz. Klal Yisrael is Goy Echad Ba'aretz. So it's matim for Klal Yisrael, the praise of Klal Yisrael, dafka on Shabbos, and it's matim for the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, dafka on Shabbos. We said that Shabbos is the gateway for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what it is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes into this world using Shabbos. So therefore, we're going to bring out these points, and specifically how we see it on Shabbos, in this paragraph. Once Shabbos was made holy. Now that's talking about Shabbos. Now the second thing is that Klal Yisrael was given Shabbos. Now the third thing is, why is it matim? The truth of the matter is, I think somewhere later on in the Sefer he says that as Shabbos goes on, the Kedusha of Shabbos actually gets bigger, stronger. So this paragraph, which is the last Shmona Esrei, we say on Shabbos, is, I guess you could look at it as the most kadosh of the three. In fact, there's another change one other change in Girsa is that we said the prayer of Elokeinu Elokei Vaseinu, which is the same paragraph in each one of the three Shmona Esreis, there is one slight difference between them. Whether it says Vayinuchu Voy, Vayinuchu Va, Vayinuchu Vom. So the Vom is more of a plural lashon. So I think the idea is, once we're more into Shabbos, so then it's we're together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always referred to as a Yochid. Many times Klal Yisrael is referred to as Rabbi. One of the famous ones is that there's a machlokes between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, that from the two different psukim. One pasuk says, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha v'nashuva chadei shemenu k'gedem. Hashem, you return to us, and then we'll return to you. And there's another pasuk that I forgot right now what the pasuk is, but there's another pasuk that Hashem says, you return to me, and then I'll return to you. I mean, who's first? What? Shuvei elai v'shuvei elechem, right? Shuvei elai v'shuvei elechem. Hashem says, you return to me first, then I'll return to you. We say, Hashivenu Hashem elecha v'nashuva. You return to us first. So who wins the machlokes? So this is the klal. Yochid v'rabim, halacha k'rabim. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a yochid. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a yochid. So yochid v'rabim, halacha k'rabim. So they say, Hashem, no, the halacha is like us. You have to return to us first. The Ma'isa, that's certainly not our problem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always here with us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is returning to us. We can see mamish massive nisim just in everyday life. But okay, let's get back into this parak now. Now that we have a better understanding, the parak of Atah Echad at the end of Shabbos is a very unique parak. So here Pinkus is coming to explain. So just a review from last time. Atah Echad, you are one. That brings out the yesod of the Chiddush HaOlam, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only true one of all existence, and all of existence. It's only because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's desires. that it makes him truly one. There is nothing above him. The rules of nature are not above HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created them and can do with them as he wishes. He might want to keep them, and he might want to change them. And the thing I mentioned it last week, but this was a point that really struck me, was Rav Dessler writes about this, that a person who's on a high level, really, all of us theoretically can understand this, but it's another thing to take this to actually believe it and live it, that you look at nature as miracles also. Who says that it's supposed to be like this? Who says that things are supposed to happen a certain way? What, just because that's the rules of nature? That's what's supposed to happen? Who says? And one of the greatest examples of this was Reb Chanina ben Doisa. Reb Chanina ben Doisa, who saw everything is nisim. It's not a chiddush that it's not poshut. It's a chiddush that natural things happen. So the Gemara, famous Gemara, Maseches Tainis, I believe, that brings that on Erev Shabbos, the Reb Chanina ben Dosa's daughter put in vinegar into the candles instead of putting oil, and it was too late to change it. They had to light right now. It was too late. And he said, she said, what are we supposed to do? He said, what's the big deal? I don't understand what's the big deal. It's the same way the oil lights as the vinegar will light. And it did. And not only did it light, it lit the entire Shabbos until they used the fire to light the Havdalah candle. Why? Because to Reb Chanina ben Doisa, the fact that oil burned was a chiddush. That was a nes. So what's the difference? This nes or that nes? They're all nisim. Everything that happens is nisim. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not subject to the rules of creation. Hashem created the world of creation. He can break them, change them, or do whatever he wants with them. So therefore, everything is a nes, and everything is a nes. So then, what's the difference? What's the difference, this or that? That shows the yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he has power over everything. So that's Atah Echad. V'shimcha Echad. What's v'shimcha Echad? Hayichud aniskar af mizgalim mitzparsim b'metzias oilam. Shimcha Echad means your name will be one, right? We say, V'yom hu yeh Hashem Echad u'shmoi Echad. What does that mean? It means the whole world's going to know about it. A name is the way that people are known. That's how you're known. You have a name. Every person has a name. Things have names because that's how you're known. So if we say Shimcha Echad, your name, the way you will be known is to be as one. Ubeikar kol al yedei midos hamalchus shel Shabbos. It's through Shabbos yesh gilui v'shlita ma'aseh shel achdus Hashem. That through Shabbos we see that one achdus, like we just explained before, Atah Echad, that you're completely one. Shezeh inyan Hashem. That's the idea of a name. Hakaras v'goli adavar. You're recognized by your name. V'zeh shimcha echad. That's what it means. It's Hashem's name. Shabbos mizgal ba'olam bepoel hayichud amiti. That it's through Shabbos that we see the oneness. And we mentioned in other places that the name of Hashem is Shabbos, because that's how he's known. Hashem is known through Shabbos. So when we say the concept of name, the concept of name means how are you recognized? When you say somebody's name, so all of a sudden, oh, I know that guy, or you don't know him, and maybe you'll get to know him. I know him. Once the name pops up, all of a sudden you can list 20 things about him, 50 things, because it's that name that's mafarsim who he is. So that's what it means, Shimcha Echad. Hashem, your name is one, that your achdus is recognized in your name, and that's recognized specifically on Shabbos. Now here's we're bringing now Klal Yisrael. Mika amchu Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz. Who is like your nation? Your nation, Klal Yisrael, is a unique nation. Hainu sha'am Yisrael shalahem nitna ha'toyra sheba nizgale soid chidush ha'olam ha'yichud amiti. Memele hem atzmam nichlalim b'kedushas achduzu. It's through Klal Yisrael that this soid of chidush, this secret, this fundamental of the Chidush HaOlam, Hashem creating the world yesh me'ayin. This is mizgale through Klal Yisrael, and that's why they are included in this achdus. The kedusha, they're in part of this kedusha's achda, the kedusha of achdus. Shekulam b'shava ke'echad mizvatum la'achdus yizbarach, because we are all mivatal ourselves to the achdus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now here in the next paragraph, he goes on to explain this idea a little bit more. every person in Klal Yisrael is unique and special, right? Every person has their own unique job to do in this world. Every person has their own specific mission that they're supposed to accomplish. So we are, to a very great degree, all individuals. I once heard an idea that if you look at the Gedolei Yisrael over the last number of generations, more or less, you put them all next to each other. On the outside, they all seem to look alike. They all have big beards, and they all have hats. And they all wear the same color shirt and the same color pants, and they all look exactly the same. They all look exactly the same, right? If you look at the secular, the way a secular person, a Goy or the secular Israelis, the way they look at the Haredi public is one big black mass. That's what it is. There's no individualism. There's nothing unique. It's all, we're all a bunch of robots who just, follow orders and that is, there's no individuality, which is completely false. It's completely false. Because each Godel and each individual person has their own uniqueness to it. And once you see that, once you get to know that, you will see how true it is. You'll see how true it is. Each one is so individual, so different from the other. Whereas if you look at Goyim who look like they're all different, that's not true. Because when you get to know them, you get to see they all have the exact same taivas and they're all looking for the exact same things. And the individuality comes out. And all you're left with really is they're all more or less the same. They have the same taivas and the same everything. It's very interesting. Clothing. We'll take just a second to talk about clothing for a second. Clothing, on the one hand, has on a surface level as a way of seeing somebody's individuality. When you meet somebody, you can't go straight into their neshama and know who they are. Right? In order to really get to know somebody, you have to spend time and really get to know them. Right? Yeah, that's what you have to do. Unless even like a social worker, a therapist, whatever. It doesn't necessarily happen in the first session that you spill your guts and you're telling this person about every single thing that happened. It takes time to get to know somebody. So when a person tries to represent themselves on the outside, it's very, very superficial. It's very superficial. It's, I want you to judge me based on the way I'm dressing, which is more or less what people do at first glance. That's the first impression, but it's very, very superficial. You don't really get to know who I am. You get to know maybe what group I associate with. I dress in a way that I associate with a certain group. So if you want to be an individual and dress in a really wild way, you're not being an individual. You're just associating yourself with a different group. There are plenty of wild people like you. Plenty. You just want to be part of that wild group instead of this wild group, or you want to be this instead of that. But you're not necessarily an individual on the surface level, because there are going to be another million people like you. So how does that make you an individual? You know where you are really an individual? On the inside. That's where you are. That's where you're an individual. Who are you on the inside? If on the inside you're still like all of those other people, so then in economy your individuality is very, very weak. But if on an individual level, on an internal level, a person knows that I have a certain mission in life and something special about me, and I got to work hard to do it. So then you really are an individual. And if you really want to get to know that person, you can't just judge them on a surface level. You can't. So really, it's very silly to judge anybody based on the way the way they're dressed, because it really gives you a very, very small percentage of who that person is. Very small. If you really want to get to know somebody, you have to get to know them, which is actually one of the good reasons why it's proper to dress appropriately, mechubad, or for a woman to dress in a tznuadik way, so that the clothing itself doesn't blind a person to say, oh, you're automatically X or Y. When we're dressed in a way that's mechubad, it's already giving us, like, this is somebody I want to get to know, because there's definitely something deeper over here. There's definitely something more special over here. So now coming back to our topic over here, that Klal Yisrael is a Goy Echad Ba'aretz, a special nation. We know every person has something different about them. Every person's a little bit different. Man was created only one. Animals were created, tons of animals, tons of fish, all different types. There wasn't one giraffe, two male and a female giraffe, and that's it. All the giraffes come from that one giraffe. No, but man was, because there's an individuality in each man. Right? Every person is an individual, not like the animals are just like loads and loads of animals. Miyuchadim heim b'nei Yisrael, shaleim nemar adam atem. And Klal Yisrael is even more special, because Klal Yisrael is called Adam. Shekol Echad Adam Shalom b'shleimus atmo shonim mechavero. Each person is a man. This is, according to at least one side in the Gemara, this is a nafkamina in Hilchos Tumas Ames. The pasuk says, "Adam ki amuz bo'ohel," a person who dies in oil. Tumas oil, that if there's a dead body in a building, that the whole building gets that tumah called tumas oil, is only by an Adam, or only by a human being that's called an Adam. According to this tzad, there's a machlokes about it, but there certainly is one tzad at least, that man, when it says Adam, it's referring only to a Jew. That means that tumas oil only applies to a Jew. It doesn't apply to a goy. According to one side, at least, that this is a halachic nafkamina, that Adam is only by a Jew. V'chein betchilas binyan b'eis Yisrael hayu shivim nefesh keneged shivim umos. There were 70 members of Klal Yisrael when Yaakov Avinu went down to Mitzrayim. Keneged the 70 umos, so it means each individual Jew is already keneged a whole nation. Hashem set up the number of nations based on Klal Yisrael, based on the number of Klal Yisrael. That's to teach you, every single Jew is equivalent to an entire nation. Just like there's a tremendous difference between each nation, right? The French are different than the Chinese, and different than the Japanese, and different than the Korean, and different than, this is one of the big things in Korea. The fact that there's a North Korea and a South Korea is a big deal, because they're really one people. North Korea and South Korea aren't two different people. They're the same people that they had a war and they couldn't figure out which they wanted to be communist or they wanted to be democratic. So, but they're family members, and the North Korea and South Korea, they're related to each other, and they're just split. So it's not necessarily, the countries aren't necessarily divided based on ethnicity. Maybe once upon a time they were, but there are many countries that this is what it is. This is, the Spanish people is in Spain, and the Italian people are in Italy, and each nation has their uniqueness, their ethnicity, right? They are unique and different, each one from the next. However, I'm here on the top of Daf Kuf. Amnam lu'uma zeh adrabah keven she'elahem nizgala soda yichud v'kol hashkofas hachayim benuya al soda yichud v'hakol boto ela yichud. Since Klal Yisrael got this yesod, got this special gift called Shabbos, and the understanding that Shabbos is based on HaKadosh Baruch Hu creating the whole world and resting, meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu stopped from creating and set aside the day of Shabbos as that day to be misgale who the Creator is, and all of this was given to Klal Yisrael. Goy Echad. Each individual Jew is certainly an individual, but we are one nation. More than any other nation, we are united. That's what it means. We're one. We are a united nation, more than any other nation. Why? Even if there's something that unites a nation, still everybody's looking out for themselves. Everybody's just interested in themselves. So I just want to have a good time. Take America, for example. America, I think, is a good example of this, because on the one hand, there are certain things that unite America, like there is one leader, and there is one governing body over the entire country, even though each individual state has their own place, which is kind of like a funny thing. This was already from the times of the founding of the United States, which was a massive problem, and maybe nowadays it's not as much of an issue, but once upon a time it was a major issue. Do we give all the states the power, or do we give the national government the power? Do we have a complete achdus, or do we not have a complete achdus? So even though nowadays it's not so much of an issue, or certainly not a blatant issue, but the more deeper underlying issue is that ultimately every single person is just out for themselves. There's no question about it. Every individual is looking out only for themselves, which is how the politicians try to get votes. They're trying to say, I'm going to help you. I'm going to give to you. Each one individual. You want to have a good life? You want to have money in your pocketbook? You want to have this? You want to have that? I'm going to give it to you. Each one, ultimately, at the end of the day, is not looking out for what one of the previous presidents, I think it was Kennedy, who said, don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. That's nationalism. We're all in this together. It's not like that anymore. Maybe even back then it may not have been like that, but at least they could fake it better. Nowadays it's not like that at all. Everybody is just interested in themselves, totally interested in themselves. And if they don't like the other one, well, then you're not my president, right? I'm not interested in you. Even in this country, I heard, I don't know, I don't listen to the news, but I heard there are people calling for new elections. They're calling for new elections. Get Bibi out of there. We want new elections. We want this and that. Okay, so somebody asked them, so let's say we would have new elections, and let's say Bibi would win again. What would you do then? I won't accept it. I won't accept. Like, what happened to democracy? What happened to doing it for the country? No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with me. I get what I want, and if I don't get what I want, I don't get what I want, I won't accept it. I won't accept it if I don't. So that creates a lack of achdus. You don't have achdus, you're not going to win wars. You're not going to win wars with achdus. That's what happened in Vietnam. In Vietnam, the American army was actually winning, but then all of a sudden there was bad press, and people started being anti the war, and the whole country was a big blow up, and they weren't behind the army. So what happened is that they lost. That's what happened. If the people aren't behind the army, so they're not going to win. They're not going to win. That's the way it is. And when there's achdus, you win wars. That's what happened with Achav. Achav was a king of Yisrael. Wasn't exactly the best king, amongst the worst kings. I think the Mishnah in Sanhedrin says that one of the people who doesn't have a chelik in Olam Haba, but they won wars. They won battles against bigger armies, against much more imposing armies than they had, but they won. They had achdus, and in fact, there were nisim during that time. They didn't even lose soldiers. Soldiers didn't even die, which is incredible. Even Yoshua ben Nun lost at least one soldier, at least one. But Achav, they didn't die. Why? Because there was achdus. When the whole nation is behind you, so then you're one. You really are one. So even though every Jew has their own individuality, certainly every Jew has their own mission to do, and every single person feels special. If a person doesn't feel special, they should go to a psychiatrist. Every person has a certain feeling of feeling special, and the reason is because you are, because the Kodesh Baruch Hu created each individual with a special mission, with something that only they can do, and that Klal Yisrael needs them. You got to do it for Klal Yisrael. You got to do it for yourself. Certainly, everybody has that, but Adayin kol echad sho'ef lechaim ayishim shelo. Even though each person wants their own special individuality, ish tachas gavno, ish tachas teinato, kol echad chai atmo, aval Yisrael shemitbatlim leyichud amiti. But Klal Yisrael, Shabbos comes, that's it. We're done. I'm not doing anything. I'm mivatl myself completely to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Nimtza shirak hein be'emes Goy Echad Ba'aretz. They are the only true one nation. They are the only true united nation, because everybody is mevatel themselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everybody, right? I may have mentioned this story in the past, but the Berditchever, there's a story with the Berditchever on Erev Pesach. Maybe it was even Leil Pesach, Leil Seder, and he told his shamish in the Russia, wherever the Berditchever is in Russia, right? Go around and I want you to find for me X, Y, and Z contraband, meaning things that are illegal to bring in from other countries. I want you to go around Bring them to me. Tell him, go around, tell him, Berditchever wants, you bring this to me. I said, what do you mean? It's dangerous and it's illegal. Go, do it. Okay. So he went door to door, he went around, came back or whatever it was a couple hours later, and he had tons of stuff. Tons. All these things that were illegal in the government, everybody had. Wow, unbelievable. Okay. Then he said, fine, okay, now, again, I want you to go. Go around, I want you to bring all the chametz. All the chametz everywhere, I want you to bring. He said, chametz, Rav, there's no chametz. Go, get me all the chametz there is. Tell them every single one. The Berditchever. He went around, came back. Rav, I told you, there's no chametz. Nobody has chametz. There's nothing, what do you want? He says, you see? To the Tsar, everybody's okay, we can work things out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everybody's mevatel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that's it. Nothing doing, nothing happening. That's the uniqueness, the oneness of Klal Yisrael, because we're all mevatel ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ra'o shekachu gam betzuras chaya yom yom. Shekol adam me'umas ha'olam ha'yoyte la'avodas edei erev. Anybody from the nations of the world, you go out, they go to work. They go to work during the day, they come back. Everybody's involved with their own business. I've got my own business. I don't want the government to bother me. I don't want, even these other religions, maybe they'll give a Sunday morning to their God. Or maybe they'll give a Friday, yeah? Or maybe they'll get drunk in honor of their God. Whatever it is. But I have my life, and I have my business, and that's what it's me. What's bringing us together? What's bringing us together? Every once in a while, we'll have a nationalistic thing that will come up. Nationalism is out. It's considered to be like racist, right? Nowadays. And it goes up and down, right? Back in 2001, when the Twin Towers were hit, all of a sudden everybody became very nationalistic, right? And now it's not in anymore. Every person cares about their business. There's nothing that unites us. A Jew, he gets up in the morning and at night he comes home. What does he have to do? He goes to Shachris. We come to Shachris and we're all there for the same thing. We're all coming to Shachris for the same thing. We're all going to Mincha for the same thing. We're all going to Marav for the same thing. This idea of a tzibur, this idea of a minyan, that we have together a congregation, that we are together. Even the guys that they go to the church, do they have, maybe you meet somebody, you network while you're there, right? And maybe you'll do some business, but like there's an idea about kehila, a tzibur, ve'ikar esek hatzvila tzarech tzibur. We need a place to meet together. We need a place to come together that we can daven for the same purpose. When learning Torah is like that also. Yes, a person can learn on their own, but ain't no doima the person who learns together in a base medrash with other people. Ain't no doima to learning with a chevra, to learning together. Because really the explanation for this is that in this world there isn't anything that really connects people. Everybody's just looking out for themselves. Yeshivas called Echad. I want one thing, you want another thing, right? We can't even buy, split a tub of ice cream because we're going to disagree on different flavors. Maybe that's why they make, the tub of ice cream is 4 different types of flavors, so we can't agree on something, so you'll get your half and they'll make it like that on purpose. Everybody has their own, this one doesn't want ice cream, he wants hot dogs, that one wants it. We can't decide it. Everybody has their specific wants. Everybody is looking out just for themselves. And the truth of the matter is, that's understandable, because that's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man in the first place. The Maharal writes about this in his parish on Pirkei Avos, that the Mishnah says, Ish is re'eu chayim balu, right? That the essence of man is that because he was created as one, and the whole world was given to one person, every person feels like the whole world's shaykh to me. The whole world's supposed to be mine. What do you think Cain and Hevel went at it for? What do you mean? The whole world's supposed to be for me. There's enough room in the world for both of you. No, it's still not good enough. Aber be'oisek ha'toyer v'hatfila behemit batea soida achdus shekeven shkol iker eisek ha'toyer v'hatfila hu itbatlus l'boya oilam. When we're involved with Torah and we're involved with tefillah, which is the whole thing, is we're giving ourselves over to the ratzon of Hashem. We're not going for our ratzon. It would be better if our ratzon was this ratzon too. If our ratzon became the ratzon of Hashem and tamat tov ma'anoim, then it's not just called being mavatal to Hashem, giving ourselves up. We're actually joining Hashem. So we see there's one thing that unites us. This is not the same thing, but even by religion, by going. You might say, no, this is the idea in general of religion. No, not necessarily true. In a church, if they only have 7 people, do they, can they start? Honestly, I have no idea. But I'm guessing, yeah, it's not, they don't need 10 people in order to say a davar kedusha, right? They say kaddish, they say kedusha. What did they say over there? I don't know. The Maisa. You don't need to have a tzibur. We need it. We need to have a tzibur. We need to have that achdus. We need to have that base medrash. We're all coming together to learn. That's where you see the achdus of Klal Yisrael. And here, just to finish this up, even more so we see this, and this is why it's shaykh. This part is shaykh to Shabbos. Because Shabbos is, like we discussed in the past, Shabbos, the Mincha, is to recharge our batteries with Torah, with tefillah, with connecting to our ruchnias, to recharging our real life source. It's dafka on Shabbos that the idea, the yesod of the achdus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore our connection to Him. Goy Echad Ba'aretz. This is where we see it even more, right? Even people, unfortunately, who have a hard time going to shul during the week will come to shul on Shabbos. Even people who daven really, really fast during the week might come to a shul that davens slower on Shabbos. Because Shabbos is the time where really we do become more of a kehillah. A person during the week might daven in this minyan or that minyan or whatever, just because of convenience and timing or whatever. But on Shabbos, we're coming together to the shul that I want to come to, that I want to be associated. So we see much more the achdus on Shabbos. And that's why Goy Echad Ba'aretz, Klal Yisrael is unique, special nation. We are true achdus when we're mavatal ourselves to Hashem, to His Torah, on Shabbos specifically. Goy.
Thank you for joining Real Judaism, where we explore Torah's wisdom for real life. Created by J Foundations and produced by Eli Podcast Productions. Find more episodes at realjudaism.org and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.